Welcome back to ZMS Esports Studio, your home for all things virtual cycling and virtual racing. And you're joined today, of course, by me, your host Mark, as I navigate you through stage 2 of what is already delivering on the promise of being a very exciting race series with Chase the Yellow. But what is Chase the Yellow? It's going to be a 4-stage mini tour series right here on Indy Velo. And speaking of, where are we going to be racing? Well, on Tuesday 29th of this week, we saw the very exciting, very mixed bag of a race with Basecamp Stage 1. Today we're taking on Coastal Loop Stage 2. And then on Tuesday, 5th of September, we will have Stage 3 locked and loaded. And to round out Chase the Yellow on Indy Velo, we will have Stage 4 with Crossover Circuit. And that's going to be the big one, as you can see there by the lap total or course total. And why don't we take a closer look at where we're racing today with Coastal Loop. So as per usual, it's taking place on Indy Velo's proprietary Velo Island, and it is, as the name suggests, a loop of the coast of the island, and it's a 2-lapper, so just over 16 kilometers per, for a total of a total of 32.9 kilometers course total. Only 83 meters of climbing today, so not much in the way of climbing. This may be the sprinter's day, but that is a double-edged sword with having almost no climbing, because what does it mean to ride and race on the flat? It means you require constant effort. And we may see that come to bear as we see the duking out, if you will, the jockeying and jostling for that pole position. So, now that we've taken a look at where we are racing today, why don't we take a look at the GC, or general classification, from the race on Tuesday on Basecamp. And we'll begin with the Pro. So with the Pro Series, we're a little bit on what this means in just a second before we jump on over to the course. But Igor Kopse, the former outdoors racing champion from Slovenia, took the day with 37 minutes 8 seconds and almost 600th of a second. And this is, let me figure this out, 1,000th of a second behind. Oh no, sorry, 16 seconds. That is actually seconds. I thought I was looking at the microns of a second, but apparently not. Tim Hupton from the USA put in a fierce effort, but fell 16 seconds behind with that very incredible breakaway that Igor really gunned to that finish line with in the last few kilometers. Josh Harris in 3rd place position, 37 minutes, 25 seconds and 100th of a second. Morten Feng is taking the 4th place position with 37 minutes, 26 seconds and 300th of a second. And rounding out the top 5 in the Pro Series is Ben Russell with 37 minutes, 48 seconds and 400th of a second. But let's take a look at the Sportive, or the non-Pro Series. So we have the men's Sportive here. Rob Housel with that phenomenal effort we saw there, and that phenomenal battle between 2nd place Ludwig Karlberg and himself with 39 minutes, 1 second and 300th, almost 400th of a second there. Ludwig Karlberg barely 300th of a second behind there in that 2nd place position with 39 minutes, 1 second and almost 700th of a second. Wouter Klaus, a familiar name to followers of the React e-cycling race series, came in at 39 minutes, 10 seconds and 900th of a second. Sven Drezer came in at 39 minutes, 37 seconds and 700th of a second. And rounding out the top 5 for the Sportive, or the general classification for men, is Grant Womack with 39 minutes, 48 seconds and 1/90th of a second. So let's take a look at the women's. And again, in the Sportive general classification, we have Ariana Verharen with Aeonian, who we'll talk a little bit more about as we get into the race, with 39 minutes, 49 seconds, and 600th of a second. Now, 2 seconds behind is Daniela Estrata, also with Aeonian, 39 minutes, 51 seconds, 200th of a second. Vicky Whitelaw, again, Aeonian, with 43 minutes, 54 seconds, and 100th of a second. Then we have J.L. Wright, another Aeonian, so a very solid filling of the top 5 here by Aeonian in the women's GC, with 44 minutes, 3 seconds, and 500th of a second. Then M. Nyquist rounds out the top 5, 46 minutes, 3 seconds, and 500th of a second. So I spoke before, alluded to the fact that we have this Pro Series race that we're going to see today. What does that mean? Well, that means that riders who have a real-world racing license, whether that's global with UCI, or perhaps even, like here in Canada, provincial, or maybe even national, you would be able to enter that license in-game here, so long as it's active and hasn't expired. And then that allows you to race in the Pro Series. But what does that mean? That means that we have verification that comes into play here that has to be complied with as mandatory. So we would have the requirement for all riders in this to be able to have power meter pedals to verify power numbers against from the Direct Drive Smart Trainer. So riders do have to compete on the Direct Drive Smart Trainer, and there would also be a race day weigh-in before the race to make sure that weight doping cannot happen, as well as number skewing from power numbers. So there we go. We've got barely several seconds left. So I've just about finished my spiel in time, and we can see on the left the Pro Series race, and on the right the general classification or Sportive. In other words, a race series where all you have to have is single recording rather than dual recording. In other words, just from your Direct Drive Smart Trainer, or if you are on a mag or fluid turbo, so in other words a rear wheel on trainer, then you would just need to have your Bluetooth or ANT Plus cadence meter, and also your speed meter on your rear wheel. But why don't we jump on over to the Pro Series race? I can already see a little bit of a breakaway, arguably more of a lead out happening right now, with Morten Feng taking the lead, Josh Harris in hot contention, but again, jockeying and jostling just as fast as I can say it, if not markedly faster. Mark Rowbottom, who was a name to watch in the July series of Chase the Yellow, is right up at the front this time. Managed to get a good push off, get a nice big burst of power in that big push to be able to get ahead. And look at this, we've got Rasmus Feldbard from E-Cycle Club Denmark, who is taking the lead right now as we pass the lead-in barrier there, the lead-in arch, which means that we are now officially in the course. So Rasmus has got a tiny bit of a breakaway here. Can he form that a little bit longer? Time will tell, but of course with fierce riders as we saw from Tuesday's race, such as Morten Feng and Tim Hampton, Josh Harris, etc., and Igor, who I can see there rising up the ranks very quickly in 5th place, which you can also view by looking at the column on the right of your screen, where we can see the numbered riders based on their position. But Rasmus there just breaking 500 for a second, staying consistently over 350 watts. And remember, this is the pro race, so it is mandatory that all riders have dual recording. So in other words, 2 ways of recording their power numbers. So in other words, mandatory that we have the Direct Drive Smart Trainer for each rider, but mandatory that we have power meters as well, whether that's a chainring power meter or pedals, doesn't matter, but it is important nonetheless. Now, Mark Rowbottom, maybe he's listened to my commentary, maybe that was the fire that he needed lit under him, and he has pushed ahead. And he's got a tiny bit of a breakaway here that is being eaten by Ben Russell, who is with the Wahoo Lacal team. And again, consistently over that 350 number, now breaking over 400. But there is a dual-edged sword, a double-edged sword in today's race, and that is the fact that we don't have any climbing for the rolliers, we don't have any climbing for the climbers. This is a flat where constant effort will be needed, and we've got Dan Manialo here with OTRRW, who's got the lead here. There was a bit of a breakaway, but Matthew Ladd, and we've got Jan Verderlinden, who is just eating away at that distance. Matthew Ladd is now broken ahead with Team Coalition. So we can see there on the left-hand side of the screen, you can actually watch, so the upper left-hand side of the screen, I should add, you can actually watch who the leader is, and we can see our chase packs as well. But it looks like Tony Lake with Indie Velo Founders Club is actually beginning to get ahead, but we're seeing more like the pro race level of jockeying and jostling for that lead position right now. Ludwig Karlberg taking the lead. We certainly saw on Tuesday, if you joined us on base camp on stage 1, that Ludwig is a phenomenal rider. He can put down a fierce amount of power consistently, and also pace himself within that. Not cook his quads, not cook his cardio effort, and instead keep nice and consistent. Scott Pisciota, I hope I pronounced that correctly, with OTRRW is shoulder to shoulder with Ludwig, not letting go of his locked in tunnel vision on the aforementioned Ludwig. And we see they're breaking 400 watts. So we're seeing good consistency with the power at the lead of the pack, the lead of the peloton, here in the sportive side of the race, or the non-pro side of the race, as much as we are with the pro. But things can change on a dime in the pro series, so let's take a look at where we are there. Tim Humpton, just to vindicate the words I just said, Tim Humpton has taken that lead, but he is like a school of fish caught among sharks. He is surrounded by contenders who are eager to push on, and Ben Russell has done just that again with Wahoo Lacal. But Electric Spirit, we saw them do phenomenal work on Tuesday, and Tim Humpton's in that second place position now. Ben Russell looking to open a breakaway, but it looks like Tim Humpton is really pressing on the gas, really cranking through that chain tension, and really putting everything into the crank arms to catch up. And we have Thomas Bayan, a teammate of Tim, who has just taken the lead from Belgium, if memory serves me correctly, taking the lead there. So let's have a look at Electric Spirit Co. or electricspirit.co. Oh, I do like that logo. I do like seeing good logo design. So we have Thomas Bayan, we have Matt James, and of course Tim Humpton. And we have Thomas Bayan on the lead right now. You can also follow along with our elevation profile in race today by simply looking at the center bottom of your screen whenever we're in the in-game window like this. And that kind of ghosted gray is the elevation profile as a two-dimensional view. So Rasmus Feldbard bringing the Scandinavian fury today. Like a Viking raiding the eastern shores of England, he is raiding the front of the pack here. So it looks like in Sportive we do have a small bit of a breakaway here with Bjorn Ozenbrink. Auf Deutschland with Ozenbrink Racing has managed to really push ahead and really bring the heat to the front of the pack here. And there's certainly a lot of really phenomenal Central European or Zentraleuropäische riders right here in the race today. But that little breakaway that Bjorn enjoyed there has just been ebbed away at. So Matthew Ladd, and it looks like as soon as he gets ahead, somebody is going to break past him. He's holding very consistent, very good power right now. And our Sportive is sticking as a peloton right now. And this really vindicates what I was saying on Tuesday with Basecamp Stage 1, where when we get those big climbs, that will really, like stretch an elastic band, that will stretch out our grouping of the riders, and it will really separate the rolliers who are going to press ahead and the climbers who are going to press ahead from the sprinters and the guys who are endurance, who can hold really good power on a consistent flat. But that's not happening today because it is mostly flat. Everyone is sticking together, and Dan Manialo taking the lead again. A little bit of a breakaway, but again just as fast as it opens up. And for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So as much as you can stretch an elastic band, when we see those little breakaways that are ebbed away at quite quickly, that's like when we snap it away, we let it release, and it goes back to its slack and relaxed state, which Dan Maniolo just found out. Nick Greenhalgh has taken the lead for now, but it's going to keep swapping around, it looks like. So the riders in the center of a peloton here, I think those are the ones to watch as we get deeper into today's race. And I'll tell you why. Because they're going to be enjoying draft benefit from two or three sides right there. And they're the ones who are storing up the energy. They're the ones who are pacing. And if they're on the Direct Drive Smart Trainers, I spoke a little bit on Tuesday about how nice that feels on Indy Velo. Well, that eases up a little bit to kind of simulate how the tension, the simulated tension through the Direct Drive Smart Trainer eases up a little bit to make you feel as though you're out in the real world, where it feels a little bit easier through the bike, it feels a little bit easier on your body. That's the closest way that can be simulated indoors, for now anyway. But in the pro race here, Ben Russell is taking the lead, but that's going to swap around any second here, swapping between Igor and Thomas. And Igor, well, again, came from the back of the pack to the front, much like he did on Tuesday. Igor is like a dynamo. There is no limit to the power that he can put through those cranks. And they have a hot contention in the mix here. And thank you, Luciano, for your very pleasant comment there. We are very happy here at ZMS Esports Studio that you're enjoying the broadcast. And thank you for tuning in. Daniel Tulin, so Electric Spirit Co. also the team to watch here, as much as Rezio Racing with Igor is. But Rasmus Feldbard, he keeps falling into the center of the pack, keeps pushing ahead. He might be one to watch today if he knows how to pace it, if he's not pressing ahead and not cooking himself every time he gets to the front here, then he might be in a good placement to really put in a finish line sprint. But Ben Russell, again, looking to get a bit of a breakaway, perhaps looking to lure the rest of his competitors into chasing his rear wheel, maybe look at cooking a few of those quads, making the lactic acid go a bit too hard, a bit too solid in the legs of the competitors, and therefore looking to make it a bit easier on himself the deeper he gets into the race. Matt James, who really came from behind, is right here at the front as well, bringing Electric Spirit Co. in equal competition with Wahoo Local. And Matt James there we can see consistently over that 350 watts. And the Sportive, everyone's sticking nicely together. Nice bunching, nice grouping. And I can see somebody there shooting like a missile from the back to the front. Who is that? In the black. We've got a black kit on there. Either way, they just were like a dart through the air. Matthew Ladd still holding strong onto the front, but Nick Greenhalgh not letting go of sight of him. And we mentioned before, or I mentioned before, that we were going to look at Aeonian, who we alluded to before, the women's team here in the Chase the Yellow on Indy Velo. And there's several members who are going to be active during this, but they're a team of over 100 who are an e-cycling race team. And in the race series today, that composes of Daniela Estrada, Vicky Whitelaw, Ariella Verhaeren, Andrea Heinrich, Jamie Wright, Debbie Wimblett, Jennifer Mizak, and Berdian Driscoll. A pleasure to have you here with us, and great logo design once again. I'm loving seeing that. I'm assuming that logo means there's a lot of rolliers and a lot of climbers on the team. John Zammit taking the lead, and as soon as I say it, Matthew Ladd is taking the team, but a fellow teammate of John nonetheless with Coalition. Dan Manialo looking to really push ahead, which he's doing right now, but on the pro side of the race, Josh Harris taking a bit of a lead with Electric Spirit Co. Getting a bit of a breakaway there, but being on relatively even flats all the way through. This is going to prove difficult to hold until we get close to the end of the race. Maybe when some of the aforementioned lactic acid has turned those quads nice and hard in the legs of Josh's competitors, but time will tell. Ben Russell here, so a lot of jockeying and jostling for that lead position in the pro race. Right now Ludwig Karlberg has pushed ahead again, and this race is proving to be very exciting and very momentary to comment on as a commentator, as it really is like an elastic band being stretched and snapped back to its slack position once a second, with who's in the lead, who's chasing. And John Zammit, I'm not sure if that's John Zammit or pronounced the Deutsches way, Zammit, but John Zammit taking the lead there for a mere moment before Matthew Ladd surges ahead again. Kai Retzel in that second place position. Sven Dreser in equally hot contention as well. And it looks like Tim Humpton has taken the pro side of the race. Kai Retzel with Watt Fabric or Watt Fabric taking the lead for a mere second. A nice little bunch here, a nice peloton. And we have the Central European team, Watt Fabric here with Andre Petala, Jan Ole Kording, Kai Retzel, Ralf Berg, Reinhold Berkey, Tobias Ostermann, and Carmen Krebs. Again, I really am drawn to that logo. Very simple, very easy to tell what it is, yet very evocative. Great stuff. Whoever did the logo design for all of these teams, great work. So you really can tell just by looking at both windows here how much the elevation changes the dynamic of a race. We saw that become very strong out in the breakaway groups, the chase groups on Tuesday, but today, wow, nobody's letting go of each other's rear wheel. And that shows you how a fairly even terrain, a fairly flat terrain is going to make that a lot more even kilted, a lot more evenly keeled for everyone out on course today. And we just got a breakaway here. Looks like it's from Igor on the pro side of the race. Is he going to open something phenomenal like he did on Tuesday? It looks like everyone behind him is now really punching the gas, but he's breaking 700 here. Wowee. Is he going to be able to pace from here? Time will tell. He's doing fast feet as well, so it looks like probably for a racer of his power and prominence that he's probably in a mid-tension gear in the big chain ring. Well, that has suddenly brought the heat to everybody here in now what has become the chase pack. And we're here with Daniel Tulin, who's looking to hold on to the back of said chase pack. It looks like he's about to latch on. Great work, Daniel, in keeping that pace going. Oh, come on, Daniel, you can do it. Don't let it go. So I would recommend shifting down and, oh no, shift up. You're going too fast on the feet. Get a higher chain tension. Just until you latch on. There we go. That's how you do it. And it looks like Igor Kopse has been consumed. But I think Igor's plan there was not to get a breakaway. He knows it's far too early right now. Or sorry, not to maintain a breakaway. I think what he was doing was really hitting the gas to, again, as I suggested before, to really stretch out the group, to really force them to chase, so that he can tire out whoever in the pack is going to tire out from that. And from there, he can just pace and be in a good position to make an attack. You can really see that he's a rider who used his UCI license to its fullest potential and really learned with probably a very consummate coach on how to do pacing and how to make an attack like that to lure in riders who have suddenly got that tunnel vision on your rear wheel. Ludwig Karlberg taking the lead for what I assume will be mere seconds once again here in the sportive side of the race. However, we're starting to see some elasticization, some stretching out of the peloton here. I'm not sure it will last long, but it's interesting to see. Looks like we might have what will become a chase pack on the back there. And Scott Pisciota there taking the lead for a short second. Sven Teresa with BHC. And we're starting to see stretching out on the front of the peloton. That's almost becoming a line now. But we're certainly seeing some stragglers fall off the back. And we've got Jorgen van Beers from Rezio Racing, who's really pushed up to the front here, challenging Ludwig Karlberg. So we're almost at the halfway point here, almost at the start of lap 2. As you can see by following the elevation profile on the bottom of your screen there, center bottom, you can see that downward facing golden arrowhead denoting where we currently are. But the pro side of the race is just that little edge ahead again in terms of distance remaining, as they have just crossed the threshold that begins lap 2. So Thomas Bayen, who we are currently following, fallen a little bit off the back of the pack here. And if you are following along at home with distance remaining, I need only refer you to the top, just about 1/3 of the way into the left of the screen. We have this bar here that has a golden border to it. It has the checkered finish line flag. The distance next to that is shown as distance remaining, and that will count down. And then we follow the speed in the center there of the rider we are currently following. And then on the right hand side of that, we have the time cumulative having counted up from when we first crossed the start line. And we're on board here with Tony Lake, a familiar name once again to anybody who follows the React e-cycling race series. So the peloton has very much reformed here. And who do we have on the front there? I can see a shot of purple. And we have Matthew Ladd with Coalition. But there's a hot contention shoulder to shoulder with Sven Dresser from BHC. We've got Dan Manialo coming in hot, looking to take on that lead of Matthew Ladd. And so it looks like everyone here is breaking 350 watts. It's interesting watching these numbers jump around. We can kind of see where the peloton is finding its pacing and where our leaders are kind of finding the pace where they can kind of shoot ahead if they're feeling up to it in the quads and in the cardio system. Igor taking that lead once again on the pro side of the race. Is he looking for the lead, or is he once again luring his fellow competitors into chasing? Josh Harris hot on his heels with Electric Spirit Co., as is teammate Tim Humpton. In fact, all of that team is right together there, 2, 3 and 4. We've got Matt James as well. Morten Feng not far behind. But certainly Electric Spirit Co. is letting Igor know that he's not alone just yet. Here we go, this is Josh from Electric Spirit Co. coming in hot on that right hand side of Igor. And he's brought a mob with him, including Ben Russell from Wahoo Lacour. And we have Jürgen van Beers of Razio Racing taking the lead here, but just being passed by Dan Manialo. And Nick Greenhall passing as well. I suspect that Jürgen is taking the time to compose himself. And my apologies, I should actually pronounce that Jürgen. I know that O in the Danish language, as long as it's not followed directly by a G, is actually a U sound. Ludwig Kauberg just like a shot in the dark. Like a missile shooting through the air. He's just shot right ahead there. And as a reminder of where we are today, we are taking the scenic coastal route, of course, around Indy Velo's proprietary Velo Island with Coastal Loop. And it looks like Thomas Bayen has come from behind there on the pro side of the race. He had almost dropped off of the little bunch we had there, the little peloton we had, and he has really shot ahead. But can Thomas hold this? Right now he's hovering between that 350 and 400, beginning to edge back on the watts right now. I think maybe he's done what he needs to do with luring the group forward. And then he's going to pace and maybe put in his moment of attack later on. Just over 11 kilometers remaining. Wowee, has this time gone past. And I should point you towards the fact all of this amazing camera work you've been seeing, virtual cameras and the such, all of this is what we call vision mixing in the video production industry. And all of this live vision mixing, all of the graphics you see on screen are handled by the incredibly talented Damon of ZMS Esports Studio. And thank you, Damon, for handling all of this. Fantastic work. I assume that Damon's webcam isn't up right now. Normally he gives us a little wave. Live from the UK. If it interests you, I am live out of Saskatoon in Saskatchewan in Canada. A land of extremes, where I will do fat bike cycling in the winter, which is a fat tired mountain bike with studs, and then a road bike in the summer, and the winter will be anywhere down to -50, and the summer will be anything up to over 40 degrees Celsius. Both of those temperatures were in Celsius. Matthew Ladd here breaking away. He's got a bit of a breakaway alongside Jurgen van Beers. And this seems to be holding for now. But let's see what happens as we get deeper into this just over 11 kilometers remaining. Jurgen perhaps losing that rear wheel for now of Matthew Ladd, beginning to really punch on the gas, as it were, to really push through the crank arms and the chain tension to really catch up to Matthew Ladd. And again, they're holding their breakaway right now. Maybe they have found the limit of the peloton that chases them. Matthew Ladd is holding strong for now, but is he pacing himself, or is he cooking his quads and his cardio effort only to be enveloped by the peloton that looms in the distance? We'll find out over the next 10.5 Ks. Let's take a look at the pro side of the race and see how things are cooking over there. And so it looks like Thomas Bejan has been consumed by the pack. Tim Humpton in the lead for now. Thomas Bejan right there with teammate Tim Humpton. But Igor is holding back in the pack there, and I know that means he is pacing. He's waiting for the next moment where he might dart ahead to lure the pack forward, or he's pacing now for the final 10 Ks to really pace for his finish line sprint. And Rasmus Feldbard, who was right up at the top with us, right at the front of the pack, has been dropped. And he was in hot contention there within the pack, within this main breakaway pack, but he has fallen behind. Josh Harris pushing ahead here with the Wahoo Lokal team. Now, I don't think my eyes deceive me. I believe I did see a couple of riders break off on a different part of the course. Now, much like in other virtual cycling platforms, you can choose which route you take. And so I believe that this is a choice that's made by the competitors here, where a different route can be chosen for maybe a potential speed advantage, but it comes at the cost of not keeping up with the pack and maybe not being able to pace yourself as well in contention. It will randomly assign you to the course you're following if you do not choose one of the on-screen prompts that are directionally based as to where you go when the road forks, as we just saw. And if you just stick with the course, you will of course follow every other rider, as we're seeing with the group we are following right here, of which Tim Humpton is currently the lead. We've got Morten Feng here breaking over 250 watts. We can see that everybody is pacing down now, knowing that they need something in the tank. They need something in the lungs, they need something in the heart as much as they do the quads to give us that finish line sprint. And we're going to see in the next several Ks how that's going to go for the riders who are currently pacing themselves back. So we went through Basecamp Stage 1 on Tuesday 29th. Today, the 31st, we are taking on Coastal Loop. But on Tuesday, 5th of September, you'll be able to rejoin us as we take on Stage 3, Locked and Loaded. And then we end on September 7th, the Thursday, with Crossover Circuit, the big one. join us for these. You can find Chase the Yellow on Indie Velo and watch the broadcast live by searching ZMS Esports Studio on Facebook, by searching ZMS Livestream on YouTube, or by downloading the ESTV app for any smart device and searching either ZMS Esports Studio or Chase the Yellow in app, and you'll be able to watch live through the many smart devices that are covered by ESTV. Scott Pisciotto doing a tiny amount of power here, and it looks like everybody is kind of goading each other into holding back at their pacing level, waiting for the moment to attack as they close in on the last several kilometers until the finish line. Matthew Ladd is taking the lead right now with Coalition. We've got Ariella Verhaeren, who is in second place position here with the aforementioned Aeonian, currently breaking 250 watts, keeping a nice high cadence, keeping the quads massage, stopping the aforementioned lactic acid from turning a bit too hard in the quads there, so that she can hold something back for that finish line attack. And once again, Aeonian Race Team, which is a 100 strong virtual racing team, consists of, here in Chase the Yellow at least, Daniela Estrata, Vicky Whitelaw, Ariella Verhaeren, Andrea Heinrich, Jamie Lee Wright, Debbie Wimblett, Jennifer Mizak, and Berdian Driscoll. Jan van der Linden taking the lead right now with Coalition. John Samet with Razio Racing in hot competition there. But Ariella Verhaeren is holding really strong right now. In fact, pushing ahead, I believe that Ariella has found a good place to pace and come in with a nice strong attack on that finish line sprint. But as usual, time will tell. Matthew Ladd looking to open up a breakaway here, this is the point where I begin to feel the tension. Will they be able to hold the breakaway? This is when I begin to feel the excitement bubbling over, and you get to join me for it, my friends. Reinhold Berkey with Watt Fabric here, holding over 250. A slower cadence, however, in that 70 to 80 range, so holding in a higher tension gear, one would assume, in the big chain ring. So looking to hold nice and tight on the tension instead, so a bit of a different tactic, holding nice and strong on the tension, ready to just be able to push that little bit harder as we close in on the finish line. Rob Halsall, who has been a fierce contender so far and winner, of course, of stage 1, taking the lead for now. But this peloton is not letting up. And on the pro side of the race, Tim Humpton has got a tiny bit of a breakaway there. But as per usual in the pro side of the race, that's not going to last long. Again, they're using this tactic fairly frequently, going great guns, opening up a breakaway, luring the rest of the pack into chasing, hoping to soften down the effort, and then hoping to pace again, and then putting a nice big attack towards the finish line. We have only 4 kilometers left, and we're going to be able to tell soon who is going to take the lead for the pro side of the race. Rasmus sadly has fallen quite a bit behind, as we can see there if we look at the top left window. Again, the gold there, we're following the race leader. But if we look at Group 2, which seems to consist of just Rasmus, he's fallen almost 2 minutes behind. Daniel Thulen has fallen 3 minutes behind. Mark Rowbottom, who opened up very strong in the race today, sadly maybe a bit of a technical there, 3 minutes 30 behind. And who is this who just used the convex of the pack? They went around the pack using the outside edge. Josh Harris with Electric Spirit Co. 480 we saw there for a second in the wattage, a lower cadence, so again high chain tension, a smaller gear, visually a smaller gear, but a higher tension gear in the big chainring, and really pulling up on the upstrokes of those pedal strokes, keeping nice and strong. I am told that going sub 90 on your cadence at high tension, while it hits your cardio effort quicker, apparently it helps you to stay at VO2 for longer. So in other words, it helps you to stay at the point at which you can hold deep breaths at the highest maximal output. So in other words, the highest point at which you can do that before you go into shallow breaths. Shallow breaths is where you don't want to be. So Tim Humpton has really called the bluff of Igor Kopse there, coming round the outside of Igor. And everyone's pacing back now. If we look at the power numbers from Tim, who just put in an attack to be at the front, people are pacing back now, waiting for the final kilometer, probably the last few hundred meters. And then it's anybody's game. And everyone's pacing very evenly right now. They don't want to leave it to chance today. Not when they have somebody who can open up a breakaway such as Igor can. Matthew Ladd's still on the lead of the Sportive side of the race. It looks like he's got a tiny bit of a breakaway, but can he expand that going into the final 3 kilometers that are left on the Sportive side? We'll find out very soon. Dan Magnolo still in hot competition there. But that gap seems to be consistent for now. But I would hasten to add that it feels like the peloton is pacing. They found the point at which they can hold and pace, and they will soon envelop Matthew. Again, the trouble with being on a almost entirely flat course is that you have to maintain that output. To maintain the consistency of that speed, you have no benefit of downhills or descents, if you will. If you're a rollier or a climber, you don't have that outward edge of being able to punch the power a little bit harder on a climb. But Jan van der Linden right here has done a move that is reminiscent of Igor Kopse that we saw on Tuesday and opened up a massive breakaway. The trouble is, again, being on this relative flat, can he hold this now for the final 2.5 kilometers? It's certainly looking very impressive right now, and he has turned the peloton in the background there into mere ants on our screen. Holding very strong right now. I wonder if we can see what those power numbers are. So almost 400 watts, breaking 400 watts. Holding around about 90, so a pretty good cadence. Not too fast, not too slow. So probably a mid-tension gear in the big chainring. But that peloton is beginning to look a little bit larger on the horizon now. And again, our pro side of the race are very cautiously, very evenly pacing themselves. Nobody dare make the breakaway right now. They're waiting for that finish line sprint. They're within half a kilometer now. And this is where we're going to begin to see it. So it looks like Matt James is beginning the breakaway, is beginning the sprint. But is this long enough a distance to hold that breakaway? Certainly very impressive right now. Let's take a look at the power numbers as Matt James pushes to that finish line. Oh, and he's being consumed. He was breaking 800 watts here. And that appears to be Josh Harris who took that. Wowee, that was a sprint for the ages. Phenomenal effort from Matt James there, but maybe calling the bluff of the team that early, or the pack, sorry, that early was maybe a little bit of a mistake. And Rasmus here looking to play catch up with the group ahead. Phenomenal effort today, Rasmus. I'm sure there was a technical there, and that's always sad to see. But there's never a bad effort when you're punching all those jewels through the crank arms, pushing through that chain tension, cranking a diamond, as they'd say in the UK. Jan van der Linden looks like he might be consumed by the peloton here. We certainly had a very impressive breakaway, but has he cooked himself before a finish line sprint? Just mere seconds away from being consumed by the pack. And here we go, Ludwig is ahead again. But who's going to put in the nice big sprint here to get ahead? Ludwig is going for it, but he is being chased by Dan Manialo. And we can see that they are both at optimal power right now, as denoted by what would be the rear brake light. That is actually a performance light in Indy Velo, showing that they're optimal performance. And Ludwig takes it. Dan Manialo closed in with what appeared to be just about 3 meters between them, about 9 feet. Phenomenal race today, phenomenal finish line sprints, and that is the sheer excitement that a flat course can bring, because that peloton just sticks together, allowing the riders to make those decisions on where they're going to pace and how to pace for that finish line sprint. Scott, who was at the lead of the race a few times there in 16th place position here. Alex Plager from Razio Racing is chasing here. We had a whole main breakaway peloton there that went through all together. So we're now with what would be the chase group, formed of Scott and Alex. But in the pro race we have Rasmus Feldbard. I wonder what we would have seen from Rasmus today if it was not for whatever technical issue Rasmus had, whether that was with connection with his Direct Drive Smart Trainer or with some other technical aspect of the connectivity to Indy Velo today. We're closing in on the final 1 to 200 meters there for Rasmus. And again, there is no such thing as an effort that can be sniffed at today. Phenomenal stuff from everyone who's been out on the virtual tarmac today. Scott and Alex there, they're cat and mouse with each other as they round the final corners in the final half a kilometer remaining. So we do have other time slots of these. This is time slot 3 that we are watching today. Time slot 1 and 2 have already gone. So for the results that will follow from today's race, the ones that we will show on screen are from time slot 3, just today's time slot. If you wish to see who won the race overall from all 3 time slots of stage 2 compounded down into one cumulative table of results, you will have to join us for stage 3, where much like today I will list those off prior to the start line of the race. So it looks like Alex took that in the battle between Alex and Scott. I'm also going to have to check out when time slot 1 and 2 are. I might even give it a bit of a go. I've not been on stages 1 and 2, but I'll give it a go. I was actually on Indy Velo this morning, and you can actually join in on training like I was doing today. Either way, we have got the results from today's race. Again, this is just from today's time slot. So Ludwig was the claimant of that top spot with 43 minutes, 25 seconds and 900th of a second. Only 600th of a second behind for the USA is Dan Manialo. In third place for England, 1 second and 900th of a second, so almost 2 seconds behind for Razio Racing. Nick Greenhow in the 4th place position is Sven Dreze for BHC. 2 seconds and 1/100th of a second behind, and claiming the fifth place position quite comfortably for Aeonian is Ariela Verhaeren, 2 seconds and 5/100th of a second, or 2.5 seconds behind Ludwig, rounding out the top 5. So that's the sportive or the non-pro side of the race. But let's take a look at the pro. So for the top 5, Josh Harris from the land down under with 41 minutes, 52 seconds and 5/100th of a second. Igor Kopse in that second place position and proving a very fierce contender, not even 1/100th of a second behind Josh. And for that third place position we have Thomas Bayan with Electric Spirit Co. Again, not even 1/100th of a second behind Igor. And we have Tim Humpton, 1/100th of a second behind Josh Harris. And Matt James, who again was in that big sprint pack that we saw cross that finish line altogether, 200th, almost 300th of a second behind is Matt James, rounding out the top 5 and putting 3 of Electric Spirit Co.'s riders into the top 5 for the pro side of today's race for time slot 3. Whoa, what a fantastic race. But it's not over, because we have stage 3 on Tuesday, September 5th, and you can join us then with Locked and Loaded. Well, thank you for joining us today, friends. I hope you've had a wonderful time. I hope you got as excited by those finish line sprints as I did. My name has been Mark. You've been a wonderful audience. I hope you have a wonderful day.